Okay, I think I got it. I don't know what the hell was going on. I didn't have my camera on. I'm also live on Twitter and YouTube, obviously. Shout out to everybody. I don't know how long I'm going to be on, to be honest with you. I'm just on for a little bit. Found some free time. Let's go ahead and get this started. Just wanted to go ahead and give everybody my quick, little yearly awards, give some updates and all that good stuff. It's all in the title. You can obviously see. I know y'all ain't blind, all that good stuff, you know what I mean? But let's go ahead and get this started. Just trying to make sure I could share this on YouTube before it gets started. That's number one, okay? Really, really quick. I don't want to stay on too long or anything like that, but just want to go ahead and go over some of my stuff right here. First of all, if I haven't said it already to everybody out there, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, right? We got today, tomorrow, and 2022 is out of the way. We got that one fight with Ioka Franco. Trying to figure out how I'm going to watch that. I guess nobody's got it, which is stupid. I think that's a great fight. I would have thought ESPN Plus, The Zone, somebody would have picked it up, but I'm going to find a stream for it one way or another. I'm going to watch that fight. It's early in the morning and all that good stuff, but I'm going to catch it. With that said, okay, like I just believe that the network should implement and add all these great cards, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just go ahead and add them, to everything. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? Now, I want to see if I can do one more. No, it's not going to work. That is what it is. Well, that's it. So really quick. Fighter of the year, okay? Just to give an award for the fighter of the year, to me, in my opinion, it was between two fighters for me. It was Bam Rodriguez and Bivol. I am going to have to give it to Bivol, though, all right? Dimitri Bivol beat who many considered the number one pound for pound, including myself. They consider him the pound for pound best fighter in the world. Bivol went in there. He put on a great performance. Consensus winner by a wide margin. Great performance. Did his thing. And then he solidified it to me by beating Zurdo Ramirez the way he did. He beat him in, I had a 10-2. Some people had a 9-3, somewhere around there, but he beat him wide on the scorecard. So very, very impressive, in my opinion, by Dimitri Bivol. So I consider him the best fighter of 2022, the fighter of the year. Now, I know what some people are going to say, so I want to address it. Some people are going to say, hey, but DStyle, hold up. Like, hold up a second there, DStyle. Hold up. Hey. Like, what you mean? Like, are you going to give the guys that became undisputed, any credit? Or are you going to, like, are you going to do anything like that? Are you going to give these guys credit? By the way, Cal, am I live? Because I'm having some issues. I always have like a page open to make sure I'm live, and I'm not showing live. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. It is what it is. Well, that's it. Look, great performance by Bivol. You got to give him that credit. But DStyle, Haney became undisputed. Fair enough. Charlo became undisputed. Jermell, right? I don't even think, did Jermell fight last year? Was the Montiel fight this year? I don't remember. Somebody help me out with that. But nonetheless, Jermell aside, Jermell and Haney did accomplish some big by becoming an undisputed champion, right? What about the women? Like, bro, I mean, I get it. I'm proud of the women. They're doing their thing, but I mean, come on. Look, I'm just being honest, right? But shout out to Katie Tater, Curse of Shield. They did their thing, all right? But I'll talk about that in a second. But when it comes to the fighter of the year, regardless of gender, to me, it's Bivol, without a shadow of a doubt. Great win over Canelo. Great win over, what's up, Yo? Great win over, Zurdo. It is what it is. As a Mexican fight fan, I have to take it. It is what it is. Like, you know what I mean? He became the president of Mexico. He lost like 4 rounds or 5 rounds total against those two guys. He was outstruck in maybe 2-3 rounds in that whole and 24 rounds. That's amazing. So you got to give Bivol his credit. Okay, so shout out to him. With that said, let me address the undisputed thing. Yes, Devin Haney became undisputed. Yes, Jermell became undisputed. I get that. I'm not saying that's great, right? But they didn't have better wins than Dimitri Bivol. Camboza's is no Canelo. I'm sorry. Like, he's not, right? Like, I'm just saying, like, the Golden Mirage will not work with me. All right? It's not going to work with me. I'm sorry. Furthermore, all right, Jermell, he fought one time, like a very good fighter, and I thought Castano won the first fight. He comes back, he performs better, dominates most of the fight, right? Although Castano had his moments, and he knocks him out. Great performance, right? But you got to ask yourself, is Castano a better win than Canelo? Is Castano a better win, than Canelo and Zurdo combined? No, like, he's not. I'm sorry. And in terms of Bam, I think halfway through the year he was there. But the last fight he had, it was kind of a good performance. I don't want to shit on him that much. And it was a good fighter, but it just didn't have that sting in it. You know what I mean? And then I just think he needed someone that wasn't quite past it. I still give him a lot of credit for his wins over Rungazai. I do. Okay. Look, good win, but I just think he needed someone a little closer to the prime, just like a Canelo is and Zurdo is. Like, and that's what separated Bivol for me, right? Bivol had to defend his title twice. Hold on, guys. I got to get the connector. I'll be right back. Okay, give me. My laptop was about to die, and I had to get the connector connected, all that good stuff. But I'm glad I didn't lose you guys. I'm still here. All right, shout out to Team Batman Boxing. How's it going, brother? Yo, Bam didn't finish the year with a high, and that's what kind of was missing. And somebody can say, "Oh, what about his other 2 wins?" Okay, fine, but can we compare that to what Zurdo did? You know what I mean? Like, I'm telling you right now, Zurdo beat Canelo so convincingly. There's people that don't even want to see the rematch. There's people saying it's not even necessary, right? And then he thoroughly dominated the Zurdo fight against a very game opponent. So I'm just saying, all right, he wins the award in my opinion. Wood Conlon wins fight of the year for me. All right, it wins fight of the year for me. That fight had it all, man. It had action, had drama, and then it had a crazy finish, like out of a movie. Like, if that finish was done in a movie, like, everybody here would be saying, "Oh, come on, it's bullshit." Like, what a stupid, unbelievable, unrealistic finish that was. Oh, okay, he comes back from behind in the final round and knocks him out of the ring. Wow, very creative, Hollywood, and nobody would believe that crazy ass ending. Okay, that was dramatic. I did not see that coming, although I did see Conlon slowing down a little bit. I didn't see that coming. It caught me by surprise. I was like, whoa, I did not see that coming. Wood did his thing, and it is what it is. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. All right. So I got Conlon Wood definitely fight of the year. It's also now knockout of the year. Shout out to Bruce Gotts. How's it going, brother? Knockout of the year for me. The knockout of the year is well, I can't believe I forgot his name for a second, but Caleb Plant, okay, has the knockout of the year. What a knockout that was. Caleb Plant, guys. I mean, shout out to the Don. How's it going, Don? How's it going, brother? I mean, Anthony Durrell was knocked out. And look, and I didn't like it. I didn't like how he was mocking him, or if you want to call it that, and doing the shovel thing. It's not for me, but it's whatever, right? But it is what it is. It's boxing. You know what I mean? Like this is a brutal sport. We're not watching like Scrabble. Like, you know what I mean? We're not watching tennis. Like, you know what I mean? It's boxing. It is what it is. Like what they're doing in the ring is worse than anything they could do outside the ring. You know what I mean? Like they're already punching each other. It is what it is. But that knockout to me was a knockout of the year. I don't think any other knockout comes close, in my opinion. How's it going, Calix?
Good, man. I'm searching high and low to try to figure out how I'm gonna watch the Ioka Franco fight tomorrow, but I'll figure out a way.
That was some fake news. I was all excited last night. Everybody, ESPN Plus got it. I'm like, really?
Oh,
wow.
I saw that too.
False alarm. Not true.
Not true.
Like we had some Coppingers last night in the chat. I'm just saying, like y'all talking shit about Coppinger, but you're going out here saying, "Oh, sources told me it's on ESPN Plus." Like what? It's crazy. So I know you already posted on Twitter, but just for the YouTube audience, your fighter of the year and why?
Dimitri Bivol, and it's just simply fighting twice a year. Because once again, in order to win a full-time award, you have to be a full-time fighter. And fighter of the year is an award. You can't win it fighting once a year. So he fought twice this year. He's one of the few pound-for-pound talents out there who fought twice this year. And his stock rose, right? Because when coming into the year, what was the narrative coming in for Dimitri Bivol? It was, and I remember speaking about this on the panel last year, is people were saying, is Bivol that good? He looks like, he fights down to the level of competition. Does he take it out of third gear? And we saw in big fights, he's a big fighter, right? So beats Canelo. And by the way, Canelo was a 5-1 favorite against him. And on top of that, beats Zurdo Ramirez. Now, he was the favorite against Zurdo Ramirez, but that's another top win at 175 for him.
Yeah.
Leverage himself.
It just added to it. Like I don't know if he wins the award for me if he doesn't fight Zurdo. Like he just needed that little extra, kind of like solidify. Like it wasn't a fluke. I'm still the real deal. I'm going to show you again. Like it was like an insurance policy, that fight. Like to get that award.
And it was sort of an upset for me because my half-year awards, I said, Bam, it's going to be tough to beat Bam Rodriguez the way he's going right now. Bam Rodriguez was going to fight at that time. He was going to fight 4 times in a year, but he ended up fighting 3 times this year, fought 3 good fights. The Soran Vise, to me, performance of the year.
Yeah.
But Zurdo or Bivol fighting that second time against good competition solidified it for me because that's 2 great wins for him this year.
It was a great win. And look, so he went Cuadras, he went Sorangasai, right? Then he fought again against, I forgot the other dude's name, I apologize. But he fought again, good fighter, right? Was it Gonzalez? I'm trying to remember the name.
It was Gonzalez.
Okay, yeah. So good.
By the way, good, undervalued opponent.
Undervalued opponent, but he didn't perform as well as he did in those first 2, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the thing. And then now when we're comparing amongst their peers, the best of the best, I need to nitpick a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Like I hate nitpickers, but at this point I need to do it because I'm comparing them to Bivol against Canelo.
You're looking for separation.
Yeah. And the separation for me was that Cuadras is still a good fighter, but coming off a loss, out of his prime, right? Sorangasai, still a good fighter, a little past his prime. Still good, though, right? Gonzalez, solid fighter, but not quite for me as let's say a Zurdo, right? Less Canelo. So I have to factor that in. Canelo was considered by most number 1, at the least number 2, pound for pound on the planet. And he was the best in those weight classes. And he was expected to, by most, to destroy Bivol. Now, not just win, destroy him. Now, I wasn't in that camp. I don't think you were in that camp, but most people were expecting a destruction, right? Mm-hmm. And that didn't happen. So he outperforms expectations. But not only that, it's not like he outperformed expectations and eked out a win. No, like he had a very clear boxing clinic performance in most of those rounds. And then he does the same thing to Zurdo.
That's right. To me, it ended up being like a clear win for him. And Bam Rodriguez was a clear second, in my opinion. Like it was between them 2. It was between them two.
What do you say to people?
You had other great wins this year, but most of those fighters fought once this year.
Now, I know what detractors will say, so we need to address it. Now, really quick, Virgil Ortiz, 2023 says, of course, Happy New Year. Virgil will be Fight of the Year 2023. Like, you know what I mean? I expect Virgil to say that. If Virgil needs to get a shot before he could try to do that, but I hope he does.
Stanionis win would be a great start.
That's a great start. Imagine if he beats Stanionis and then he gets one of the big belts, he's in the running without a shadow of a doubt. Calix, the comeback, because I see it coming a mile away, is going to be, what about Devin Haney? He became undisputed. What about, Jermell? He became undisputed. How can you guys ignore that? How can he not be fighter of the year for either one of those guys? Your response to that is what?
My response for Jermell is an easy one. It's not active enough. Like I said, you can't win a full-time award not being a full-time fighter. So once a year doesn't cut it for me. That's just my criteria. You can't win fighter of the year if you're fighting once. Now, Devin Haney is a good argument. You're undisputed. You go to Australia, you win twice. But our two Cambosos wins just on the surface. Undisputed is a great achievement, but on the surface, are the two Cambosos victories better than Canelo and Zurdo? Are they better than Quadras on 11 days notice for a title?
Right.
And then following that up with knocking out a guy who's never been knocked out and doing it definitively, winning every round? No.
Right.
No. So he's top 5 for sure, maybe even top 3. But to me, Bivol and Bam separated themselves from the rest of the pack.
Yeah, they did. They definitely separated themselves from the pack. And now I want to go to fight of the year. I give mine. I already know your answer, but tell the YouTube audience.
For fight of the year, Lee Wood, Mick Conlan. It was close to an even money fight, and that was an action-packed weekend of fights, but that one stole the show that weekend, and it was an even money fight. And then you had the ebb and flow throughout the fight. It was Mick Conlan and then Lee Wood coming back, and then Mick Conlan starting to come back, and it looks like Mick Conlan's up on the scorecards, which he was, and Lee Wood needs something, and Lee Wood pulls off that Carl Froch against Jermaine Taylor moment, right, where he knocks the opponent out in the last round. And it's also in the running, if not knockout of the year. I had it second for knockout of the year, but you're knocking the guy out of the ring in the 12th round when you're down on the scorecards. That's drama.
I said, I don't know if you heard it when I said, if someone wrote that in a Hollywood script, we would be like, oh, come on, that's stupid. You see what Hollywood, you see how they exaggerate everything? That's what I would have said.
And by the way, he does it at home. The crowd's going crazy. Then the narrative is, will Mick Conlan ever come back from that? And then Mick Conlan ends up fighting 2 more times that year. Shout out to Mick Conlan. He fights 2 more times this year and then angles himself right back into a possible rematch with Lee Wood sometime in 2023. He's staying active. He exercised the demons quick. But that, to me, was the fight of the year. And there were other candidates, but that had everything.
Yeah, like that was definitely for me, and I agree with you 100%. I do believe that's the fight of the year. And I remember halfway through the year, I was like, who's going to beat that drama? Like, it's not impossible, and now granted, later today, and now they're not putting up the fight, but you never know. So I just want to give a caveat. While it's unlikely, just because of how dramatic that fight was, hey, Ioka, Franco, you never know. Like, you know what I mean? That might take the cake, but and it's still in the year, so I can always come back and be like, you know what, guys, change the plan, but I doubt it. Like, you know what I mean? Look, I picked Plant Durrell as knockout of the year. Why didn't you pick a knockout of the year?
Plant versus Durrell was a great knockout. Highlight reel knockout.
Knockout.
I love the shoveling after, right? I love the
You loved it. I wasn't too keen about it, but hey, it's boxing is what it is.
After. But the reason I love that knockout was he went to the body to set it up, and then he went back upstairs. So, yes, that was arguably the highlight reel KO. But the reason I don't have it number 1 is he was a huge favorite. He was a 12-1 betting favorite against Durrell, and he can punch. Like, people forget that. That's the crazy thing about the Canelo thing is, leading into the Canelo fight, the Canelo detractors brainwash people into thinking that Caleb Plant's not a puncher. Caleb Plant can punch with his left hand. He's a one-handed fighter, but he's knocking other guys out, not named Canelo, and he proved that against Durrell.
Yeah.
And by the way, look for that against Benavidez as well. It's going to be a great fight. But he was a 12-1 favorite. Okay, so when you compare that to Lee Wood being a slight underdog going against Mick Conlan, knocking him out of the ring in the 12th round, I put that above it. But ultimately, I put Cordina above Cordina versus Ogawa at the top, because that was a beautiful, fast, one-punch knockout that was out of the blue. Nobody expected that. That was if you look at the prop bets, that was the least likely result, is Cordina. Like, if you would have said Cordina wins by decision against Ogawa, everybody's like, okay. But Cordina, coming off of multiple hand surgeries, not a puncher, and then obliterating Ogawa with that punch and doing it at home, the announcers, everybody's going crazy. To me, that was the knockout of the year. It was highlight reel KO. Ogawa he eviscerated him. He just goes down. Yeah, he's down for a long time. Everybody's
the Men in Black on him,
and like I said, it wasn't a scenario. The narrative going in, and I even said it was, Cordina is either going to win by decision over Ogawa, or Ogawa is going to win by knockout over Cordina. The least likely result was Cordina winning by knockout, and he knocked him out.
Exactly.
That's why I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Haplo, he mentioned the Inoue against Sonair. That was a really good stoppage for sure. I think it could have been the knockout of the year. The ref didn't step in. That's for sure.
Right.
It was about to happen, but it was you could nominate it for stoppage of the year for sure. Morel had a great knockout as well. Devastating, So there you go.
Yeah, it's not called TKO of the year. It's called KO of the year, right? So,
but I mean, a lot of people have stoppage awards, So
yeah.
But to me, if there was a stoppage award, it goes to Wood Conlan because of how traumatic it was. But
right,
it's what it is. All right, so who do you who would you name prospect of the year?
That's a tough one, because it's becoming with the inactivity. It's becoming blurrier who is a prospect, who is a contender, who is that's becoming blurrier to me, is that line. I don't know who we consider a contender and a prospect anymore, because you have contenders not fighting for titles anymore. Right. They're either so inactive or they don't care that you almost consider them
or not getting a shot.
Still prospects. So I would say, are we considering Jared Anderson a prospect? Because I could throw out names: Xander Zayas, possible Keyshawn Davis possibility, but Top Rank has a great young roster. They're still producing great American talent.
Yeah.
But if we're considering Jared Anderson a prospect, I would say him. And the reason I would say him is, to me, he gets it to what do you need to be in order to be a star? Exactly. And you and I have talked about this in the past, is where is the new star going to come from, especially in particular an American star? Where is it going to come from? Because these fighters in the part-time era, they're not building organic fan bases. They're not in people's faces enough, right, to build that organic fan base. So we're producing great talent, still great fighters, but we're not producing stars. To me, Jared Anderson is in the best position to be the star. He's a heavyweight.
Mm-hmm.
He has the entertainment value. He came to the ring wearing a Grinch outfit. He gets the entertainment, the Prince Nassim Hamed value of bringing that to the table. And on top of that, he looks like he has great technical ability in case he gets in trouble in the future and has to go 12 rounds. But on top of that, he wants to knock guys' heads off.
Yep.
A heavyweight who wants to eviscerate guys. He's the best American prospect we've had since Riddick Bowe, people say, in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And I would agree with that. But he's got the full package. And on top of that, he's with the right promoter. He's with the right promoter, because if anybody is going to build the next star, who has a proven track record of that, is Bob Arum. And on top of that, he's on the best network, ESPN, to build a star, because Showtime's ratings are going down. The Zone, I like the Zone. To me, they're the network of the year as far as the stuff they've been putting on this year, but it's still the Zone. ESPN still has the bigger platform, right? So
Right.
I think
Bigger
Jared
reach.
Anderson's got everything going for him. If we're considering him a prospect, which I still would, I got to
The
say
thing
him.
with the Zone, here's a problem with the Zone. Like, casuals don't just pick up their phone and go to the Zone app. Oh, let's see what's on the Zone. Like,
Yeah, no.
this doesn't happen. You have to be a hardcore fan that already knows about the fights and then go watch them to watch the Zone. That's the reality, right? Whereas ESPN, you still get the same thing. The hardcores that know the schedule are still going to watch it, right? And then they have the option of the app with ESPN Plus along with TV. But you also get the channel surfers. You also get your casual sports fan that just trying to see what's on at the moment, or what's on after this college game, or whatever it is, right? After March Madness, after a college basketball game, after whatever an NBA game. Oh, look, there's a boxing fight. Let me see what's on. And they see Jared Anderson. I'm a firm believer that he's going to captivate some people. He's going to get attention. People will watch him, right? And so the eyeballs are there. Now, for me, I just think last year, he was my prospect of the year, right? Now, no one's saying you can't win it 2 years in a row, but I've always been a firm believer, like, you can't be a prospect for like 2 years. Like, to me, if you were to tell me, hey, D-Style, make me a top 10 heavyweights list, he's going to be in the list. So if you're already in the top 10, you're not a prospect to me, right? I got to give it to Xander Zayas. I agree with some people in the chat. I think Xander Zayas, in terms of what I think of when it comes to a prospect, and what I think of the term prospect, I got to give it to Xander, man. I think Xander is like, if this kid could become something, right? And I've interviewed him. I think you were on one of those panels too, but I've had him on before. Like 3 times I've had him on. And I'm telling you right now, like, he has the charisma of Tito, but he fights more like Cotto. Like you know what I mean? Like, so he's got a little bit of both. Like Cotto's his hero, like, you know what I mean? But then he also, when he started getting into boxing, he started learning about Trinidad, and so he has the personality traits of both guys in a way, right? And I think,
and he's got a base that is craving for a star. Puerto Rico needs a star and craving for it badly. And New York.
Yeah, and I think he is what Top Rank was hoping Berlanga was.
But I would say this. I did see some things I didn't like with him in the last fight. I didn't think he looked great. But once again, nitpicking once we get to this point.
Yeah.
We're nitpicking a little bit, but I think they're going to, from what I hear, they're going to move him up to 10 rounders, then hopefully 12 rounders by the end of 2023. I wish they would have him ready for Puerto Rican Day Parade weekend, because I think he deserves to be the headliner instead of Berlanga.
Look, Top Rank, bro, Top Rank, they are the opposite of what the Yankees are in baseball. Like, they don't just buy people and bring them over. Like, you know what I mean? They are the epitome of the farm system, bringing them up, you know what I mean? That's what they are, right? Like, they build their fighters and bring them up the right way. I've always said this. Like, if you want to build up a fighter, Top Rank, like, all day, every day. Now, obviously, once you're a star, once you have the name, then you have options. You don't need to stick with Top Rank, right? But right now, he's in the right place. He has a right promotion. They're bringing him up the right way, and they're not going to like leap too much, which is frustrating for us fans because they're just leaping a little bit, right? But I think eventually, maybe not next year, but you will be seeing him in the top 10 pretty soon, in my opinion. And for anybody wondering, oh, why not Ortiz? Why not Boots? Man, those dudes been like, those dudes should be fighting for belts already, bro.
To me, 2023 was a lost year for both guys.
Yeah.
Both guys fought once against lackluster opposition. It was a lost year. They've really got to step it up big in 2024, both of them. And it's not starting off good for Boots. Other than he's active, that's good, but not starting off good with the competition. Hopefully Virgil and Stanionis comes off, and then that leverages Virgil into an even bigger fight at welterweight, because welterweight's got to get moving in 2024. That division has to get moving. And in boxing, we have to make the sexy division sexy again. because they're not sexy right now. They're
Let
just
me ask
not.
you this: who's the trainer of the
See,
year?
it could be several guys, but I've always felt like trainer of the year is like, and I don't want to
Downplay?
downplay it or insult trainers out there, because
Right,
trainers,
right.
they valuable, very valuable.
Of
It's a team
course.
sport. At the end of the day, it's a team sport. Yes, the fighter has to go in there by themselves, but it's a team sport. The issue with it is we've seen so many trainer of the years based off of one fighter, one top fighter, one special fighter having a great year, right? Um, we've seen it with Buddy McGirt in the past several times. Buddy McGirt
Sure.
has a great year, and then is that sustainable over time?
Or Freddie Roach, like just because Manny was winning.
Or Freddie
Yeah.
Roach because Manny was winning? Is that sustainable over time? So I don't really, I don't know if I would have one guy that I would pick out of the crowd that I would say has had a great year across the
Who?
board, like across the board.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough. Yeah, because you have people saying, "Oh, well, what happened to Eddie Reynoso?" Like, yo, Eddie's not in the ring, brother. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it
Mhm.
is what it is. I do think he had a rough year for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh
Like,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I get your point. I think there's a lot of great trainers out there. Just to give a shout out to one, I gotta give it to Papachenko, man. I think he's doing his thing. Lomachenko had a little bit of a, he had his run. Usyk, he's training Usyk. Usyk had his win in the rematch against Joshua. So I'll give it to him. Derek James.
Did Lomachenko have a great fight against Ortiz? That's what I'm saying, though. It's like,
We don't know because
especially with
we
the
don't
father
know.
trainers.
Well, here's the thing: we don't know how good Ortiz is. What if Ortiz starts getting some big wins and he beat
That's
Jamal
what I'm saying.
Jamal Harris?
Ortiz, I think, is undervalued. I do
That's the
believe that.
thing.
But what I'm
But
saying is,
yeah,
like, if you have one fighter or if you have a couple fighters, it's tough for me to say
right.
that guy is the trainer of the year. I like the guys with big stables across the board,
True.
and they're there training the guy who's 108 pounds, but they can also train the heavyweight, and they'll
Yeah.
also be on Showbox or back in the day it would be Friday Night Fights or Thompson Boxing, but then they'll be on Thompson Boxing Friday night, and then Saturday night they'll be on the Showtime
No.
card. I like
Yeah.
trainers like that with the big stables.
No, yeah, it just depends, right? Like for example, it's subjective. Like there's no doubt. It's probably the most subjective of all awards for single people, right?
Yep.
Because you can give it to a guy if, like, let's say there's a trainer, he only has one fighter, but it's a fighter that he brought up from when he was in the amateurs. He was with him when he was a prospect, when he became contender. And then they have a year together where, like, that fighter wins a title, defends it twice against big name opponents. Like, that trainer could become trainer of the year, right? And then you have the guys that are like the for hire guys, you know what I mean? Like mercenary for hire, like a Robert Garcia with a big stable. Of course, he's going to have a lot of big wins, just because at all levels, you know what I mean? So it just depends.
And
But
to give people like a better specific example is if you're a football fan, how many Super Bowl coaches and coaches of the year 2 or 3 years later are not the coach anymore? They're fired. Ed
right,
Orgeron down the road coaches
right,
LSU football to arguably the greatest college football team of all time, and 2 years later he's gone. Cam Newton's
crazy.
coach Gene Chizik in 2012, Auburn. It
Gone.
turns out Cam Newton's just a special quarterback that made Gene Chizik look great, and then Gene Chizik 2 or 3 years later he's gone, fired. So a great fighter or a great player, particularly if you inherit that player, right, or inherit that fighter, they
Exactly. I
can
mean,
make
there's
you
no
look
doubt. But
much
it's
better
definitely
than you are.
it's a subjective award. I mean, if anything, it's the most, you can literally give it to whatever trainer you like, and if they had a good year, it's not a bad pick. Like, you give it to anybody, really. You know what I mean? But I will say this. Derek James, just to shout him out. I mean, he could have won it too. I mean, the Jermel win and the Spence win are two big wins.
Yeah,
That's a lot of belts between them. You know what I mean? So
those are two
he's
great wins. They
got
really
all
are.
4 and 3, like in two weight classes, right?
Yeah.
Those two weight classes apart. It's going to be interesting though. Like, if Spence moves up, is he like, what is Derek James going to do?
And I got to give it to Derek James because I felt the game plan going into that second fight, the undisputed fight, Jermel against Castano. I feel like they did a great job of making
Mhm.
adjustments in that fight. They were very aggressive, front foot oriented, not allowing Castano to come forward as much as he did in that first fight, staying off the ropes.
Yeah, staying off the ropes and all that for sure. So yeah, Haplotype actually mentioned Eric James, and it kind of I said, yeah, for sure. Because you see how crazy this award is. You
Yeah.
can overlook somebody, like if you're not thinking about them at the moment. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I'm glad he brought it up. For sure. Shout out to Chicano Prophet. How's it going? Look, performance of the year. You already said yours. You said it was Bam against
Yeah.
Rungsai.
Or on Visa, yeah.
Okay. You know, I got to be honest.
Expectations. Once again, it's expectations. Nobody expected him to stop Rungvisai in that fight, and he
Yeah,
did.
nobody expected that. That's a big deal, and that's why for me was that had him as the front running favorite for fight of the year for me. But then Bivol kind of snatched it at the end, and we had to kind of nitpick a little bit to give it a Bivol. But here's the thing, I gotta give it a Jermell, bro, against Castano. Like, yeah, he wasn't active, but here's the thing, in my opinion, like all bullshit aside, like. Let's put the odds. I don't even remember what the odds were, but I was pretty confident Castano had a shot in that fight. I picked Castano in both fights, right? I think Castano did really good in the first fight. I scored it for Castano, right?
Mhm.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is just a bad style matchup for Jermell, right? All day, every day. But guess what? Jermell went out there, and it's not like the Harrison fight where he was like behind on my scorecard, then he knocked him out. No, he was winning and dominating most of that fight. Castano had his moments and he was game, but for the most part, he made the necessary adjustments and he took control of that fight, and then he had a great knockout. Like it was a great stoppage, right? Not quite, knockout of the year, but it's still up there, right? So I got to give it a Jermell, to be honest with you. I think
that is one
was
that makes me like second guess,
yeah.
because that is a great one. He was dominant. He was sharp from the beginning. He made the proper adjustments, and he was a slight favorite going into that fight. But him winning by knockout, not too many people were picking that.
And he didn't need the knockout. He could have won that by decision, right?
Yeah,
but the fact that he got it, it was just sweet. And Jermell, and I'm going to mention this one in a little bit. Chicano just brought something up that's making me think a little bit, right? But Jermell to me, a little bit like Anthony Joshua in this way, that they fight nothing alike, but he's like Anthony Joshua's really good at making adjustments from one fight to the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
They watch film, they make the adjustments, they implement the game plan, and he's really good at that. He showed that twice now against two fighters that I believe he lost to. One of them officially against Harrison, but he did really good in the rematch, right? Bivol is a fighter that makes great adjustments, kind of like Usyk, from one round to the other, right? He don't need to wait to the next fight. Like this guy has a photographic memory, and he remembers what you did, and he comes out in the next round, and he makes those necessary adjustments, kind of like he did in the 10th round against Canelo after Canelo had that great 9th round, right? When it looked like, oh shit, Canelo might be taking this back, kind of like he did against Plant, and then boom, he made an adjustment, right? What do you think about Bivol against Canelo as performance of the year?
Yeah, it could be too. Those would be my top three right there. It would be Bam, it would be Bivol,
Yep.
and it would be Mel. The thing about Bivol's performance to me is Canelo was a 4.5 to 1, 5 to 1 favorite, and Bivol to me won 9 or 10 rounds in that fight. And you know how high I am on Canelo.
Yep.
And Bivol does that. To me, that showed it answered any question we had going in, is because we had those questions. Is Bivol looks talented, but is he fighting down to his level of competition? Will that Bivol show up against Canelo, or will a special fighter? And he became a big fighter this year.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
He became a guy on the fringe of the top 10 pound for pound to top 5 pound for pound. I think I have him number 4 right now on my latest list.
He went from, Better Beef will destroy that guy to, at the very least, you could give Better Beef a good fight. Like, you know what I mean? And some are even picking Bivol to win, right? So I think that was, just something to look out for. I'm just saying. You know what I mean?
And in a rematch, like you said, with adjustments, I'd pick Bivol against Canelo. In a rematch, I'd pick Bivol against anybody, though. Anybody 175 down, I'm picking Bivol at this point, even against better Biev. And I'll make a prediction here is there's an opportunity, there's a chance by this time next year, we're having these same discussions that Bivol will be in pound for pound number one discussions if they could get him 2 fights.
I got to
Because
be
he
honest,
becomes
Alex.
undisputed at 175. Let's say things don't develop for Bud Crawford above him. Let's say in a way we'll still be there. Well, let's say Usyk loses to Fury. Then we got something.
Hey, look. All I got to say is that Bivol went out there, did the unexpected. He didn't just surpass expectations. He didn't just surpass the bar. He became the bar. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so now, like, he beat it. Like, look, a lot of people don't even want to see the rematch, bro. That's how decisive he won in many people's eyes. You know?
Yeah.
That's a hell of a way to win against Canelo, bro.
It is.
That's crazy. I mean, so, you know, maybe I'm second guessing it a little bit, but you could definitely give it to him. But another one could be maybe Usyk against Joshua, but I think it was a little too competitive to be the performance of the year, in my opinion. But, you know, just to throw that out there. And I think Fury's fights were he was too much of a favorite to win that award for me.
Yep.
Sorry. Well, what do you think was what's the biggest, like, what can I call it? Mismatch, like that just disgusted you that happened?
The one that disgusted me, and this may not be popular among some people because I was outspoken about it, and I'm still outspoken about it because this guy who was the B-side is just I don't understand it. I don't get it. Is Raleigh Romero against Tank. How they sold that pay-per-view. How he ended up coming all the way down to a plus 700 underdog, which is amazing to me because it should have been way wider than that. This guy wasn't even close to being top 10 in the division. And I just don't get it. Like, I was on Instagram earlier and I'm watching Raleigh hit the heavy bag, and I'm like, how is it that this guy who was on ice skates to fight for, arguably lost 2 fights before against not good competition, you watch his Instagram page, and I'm watching him hit mitts, and it looks like a 7-year-old at the YMCA hitting the mitts. And somehow this guy talked himself into that fight. And somehow he's going to talk himself into another fight. And then somehow he's going to talk himself into another fight. And we're giving this guy a platform into big fights. And the networks are promoting this guy as something better than he is.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And that was horrible. But here's one. To do that 3 times for a third time? Like, Tyson Fury,
Chisora,
out of thin air, just decided to fight Chisora. Like, they had he just randomly tweeted one day, "Hey, why are you ducking the smoke for the third fight?" Like, what? And then, like, and nobody bought it. Nobody said, "Oh yeah, Chisora, why are you ducking this?" Because Chisora was never ducking any. I don't think Chisora thought that fight was a possibility, to be honest with you. And then he flat out just says in the lead up, "Oh, I can't hate this man. I mean, he's giving me a payday." Like, nobody wants to hear that on the lead up to a fight, bro. Like that's fucking stupid. Like, I'm sorry. And then like people need to understand that Chisora obviously no longer in his prime, no longer the same. You know what I mean? Like he had lost most of his recent fights, and Fury had already decisively beat him twice. I mean, making the corner stop it in the rematch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fact that fight happened again was an abomination. I don't care what anybody says. He carried him in that fight, bro. And he carried him because he didn't want people to say, "Oh, why'd you fight this guy?" He wanted to be able to say, "Oh, you see how tough Chisora is? He was able to take my punishment and still keep coming because he's War Chisora." Like, and he beat it. And then, like, that's not even like a good thing. Like, that's actually worse, Fury. If you would have knocked him out early, that's better for his health because prolonging the beating isn't good. The dude couldn't eat his cheeseburger, brother.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the back they're eating cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
Fury like lifted his shirt to show his belly. He's eating his burger, and Chisora can't even open his mouth to bite his burger, brother. This shit's great. Like this, you fuck the dude's jaw up, you beat him up, you swole him up, and then you're over here acting like we're supposed to be like impressed or something. I have higher expectations for the heavyweight champion of the world.
That was bad. You're right.
And heavyweight champion of the world is higher than a Reggie champion.
It's a trilogy that we didn't need.
It's the worst trilogy of all time.
Yeah. I mean, it's worse than Home Alone 3.
It's crazy.
At least Home Alone 1 and 2 were good.
It's worse than Toy Story 3. Toy Story 3 was better. And nobody even knows about that movie. The Lion King 3 was better, brother. Nobody knows.
And somebody said the Go Mario P is saying Deontay versus Hellenius. And that was an interesting one, too, because that was on pay-per-view. And I remember complaining about that and getting a lot of pushback on that. Is you put that on pay-per-view, clearly Hellenius wasn't going to be competitive, but they're building that up as a competitive fight. Like you said, they were acting like this guy was a real Viking. It's like, no, there are no real Vikings. Like, he's not a Viking. He's just a dude.
Yeah, like people were telling me, they were like,
warrior.
Oh, I bet you wouldn't say that to the Viking warrior because he would tear your limbs apart. Like, no, he wouldn't. He's not going to assault a civilian because he doesn't think he could beat Wilder. Like, stop. Okay? Like, I don't think you could win. Oh, he's going to take out, like, his Viking sword and, like, shot me in half or something?
Yeah.
The fuck? What's the matter with people? Like, they start threatening you with it. Have you ever been threatened with the fighter? Oh, yeah, I bet if you would have said to his face, he'll fuck you up. Like,
yeah.
Okay. Well,
there's a line you don't cross, and we make sure we don't cross it like these other guys, but you can be critical.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, D-Style, like, this is something that's disturbing me because I see the trend continuing into 2023. There are two things that are very disturbing: inactivity and the amount of pay-per-views, and I don't see that slowing down at all going into 2023. Right. And that is a huge letdown because that run we had between April and early July was a nice little run in boxing.
Yeah.
And that used to be the norm for us as boxing fans 20, 30 years ago. And it reminded me of the old days. Every weekend you had something. But after that, like the second half of the year in boxing was a huge letdown. Huge. And I see that going into 2023 because we've already had Ryan pull out of his just.
And I don't know what people are going to say, by the way. Oh, but the women. Okay, that's cool. But we're talking about an overall. Women are like 5% of the talent pool. You know what I mean? Like, if we're honest, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I'm just saying. And it was only 2 big women events. Like, people are acting like there was a women event every week or something. It was a Katie Taylor fight and with Serrano, and it was Marshall against Shields. Big events, right? Mayor Bumgarner, big events. I'm not downplaying it, but that just wasn't enough for us to not be able to say boxing kind of brought a week, second half of the year.
Yeah, I thought
one of those was postponed. And then it postponed because the Queen died. Like, what?
Yeah. 2022, for the most part, for me, was a letdown, like a net negative in boxing. Because when you talk about top 10 pound for pound fights 14 times combined, top 50 fights 69 times combined, top 100 fights 130 something fights combined, it's just not enough. It's not enough. And on top of that, we're not getting quality. And on top of that, we have to go behind an added paywall in order to access a lot of these top fights. Is not good. And it's carrying into 2023 as a lot of these fights, particularly on Showtime, are pay-per-view fights. And then we've had 2 fights just on one date, January 28th, canceled. Jamel due to an injury. And then Ryan was supposed to fight Jesta in a 2-month fight. Ryan. And Ryan, and he decides he's not going to do it. And then Tank almost messes around and messes up the January 7th fight. So it's just not a good look. And
not a good look.
I need inactivity people to stop with at least do this, at least stop with the Well, it's good for fighter safety because it's not, because these dudes are pulling out from injuries more than ever and they're just not active. So obviously inactivity isn't
It's
leading
like
to safer fighters.
here's the thing. You know what else is safer for boxers? They don't fight at all. So what are you saying? That they shouldn't fight or what? Like it's just this whole thing doesn't make sense, bro. Like, oh, it's better for fighter safety. They fight less, just once a year. Like really? Like you just want to fight once a year? Like what type of a fan that wants to watch these fighters fight says that? That makes no sense. Plus, there's really good data to suggest that long layoffs cause bigger injuries, right? Because your body's not getting used to it, right? So it is what it is. No one's saying they should fight every week, okay? I'm like nobody's saying go back to the Robinson days where they're fighting 4 times a month. But what at least can I get 2 fights a year? Like 2? Yep. Maybe 3. Go from 3 to 2 depending how the calendar falls. Just give me a fight every 5 to 6 months. That's it. You know what I mean? Like is that hard? Well, especially when you're and if you're a prospect and you're dominating these guys, do you need to fight only once a year? That makes no sense. You're supposed to be active. You're supposed to fight 5-6 times a year. So another prospect, by the way, I didn't nominate him as prospect of the year, but I got to give a shout out to Nikita Tszyu. Okay, the younger brother of Tim Tszyu. He fought 5 times. Okay, against a certain level of opposition. Obviously, we don't know if he's going to be as good as Tim, much as his father yet. But I mean, right now he's looking really, really good. Whispers are telling me he's probably better than Tim, but people always say that about the younger brother. So it is what it is.
Eli.
We'll wait and see. But I think he'll definitely be on the running next year for prospect of the year. I have a feeling they're probably going to put him in there with Horn and some of the other guys around that weight class. So just be on the lookout for Nikita Tszyu. All right. What was the event of the year for you? Event like total package. Although we don't get a lot of events in boxing, like a lot of the undercards suck for the most part. But what would you say?
Event of the year for me, because I went to it, was Canelo Golovkin 3. But in all honesty, the main event ended up being a letdown. Obviously, a great event. You had a nice undercard. It did a good live gate. Pay-per-view numbers, did it do the numbers people wanted? I don't know. I get real numbers anymore. So if they're saying it did 800,000, 850 compared to other fighters, that's good. So I'd say that's the event of the year for me. I mean, it had box office success, and for the most part, it was a good card.
Okay. Yeah, I got to go with Madison Square Garden, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano.
That's a great one.
I think just because of the significance of it, but I'm going to say this, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer or nothing like that, okay? But this whole it's her story, and you know how to say her story. We're making it her story, and we're this is history, and this is epic, and it's never been it's running its course. Like at some point, you can't do that anymore. Like at some point, you got to deliver. You know what I mean? And I do wonder if there's a good start next year for women's boxing. Like there's 2, again, they're saying undisputed fights, and I get it. The talent pool isn't as big as the men's, though. Just saying, but. Then what? Like I just feel like they got to keep delivering, and I think whether fair or unfair, they got to keep doing it on a more consistent basis than the men, right? Do you think boxing will keep women's boxing will keep momentum going, or do you think that this at some point it's going to be just like it's happening with the men, like you know what I mean, like fighters don't want to fight, or do you think it's not at that point yet where we're going to see those fighter walls?
At some point, it'll get there, but right now, women's boxing is in its exponential growth period, right? So it's going to shoot up. Once you get we're naturally, and that's what you need. The organic part is necessary, right? That's the organic part that is necessary. You have to have that. You can't fake it. So we've talked about this, you and I, about what's needed in women's sports. You need subsidies on the front end, right? Everybody agrees with that, or should. Like, I have daughters. I don't want to see my daughters go off to Australia or Croatia or wherever to go play women's basketball. I'd like to see them play here. So
Right.
we need to subsidize that. But at some point, you need to start
About
making
boxing.
money,
You're gonna put them in boxing?
or possibly, yeah, possibly
Maybe.
they're going to play everything, but and see what they like. But you need both of those. Like, you need the subsidies and you need the organic growth too. And the good thing about what's going on in women's boxing, why the trajectory is headed in the right direction, is you have both of those things.
Yeah,
The Zone did a great job. I mean, they'll
yeah.
never give him credit for that, but Eddie, they did a great job of putting women's boxing on these undercards consistently, and then people get used to the names and they're like, oh, okay, I see that, and then they
Exactly.
gradually
Yeah.
move them up the card. And then what's needed in every sport? Rivalries. It's why women's tennis is great. Women's tennis always has rivalries. Always.
Yeah.
Always. You can go back
Even among sisters, right?
decades. Even the sisters, but
yeah, I just want to add something to that. Look, there's no doubt, right? But I just think there's specific things that are going to be a detriment to women's boxing if certain things don't change, in my opinion. Okay, one of them is all the like virtual signaling shit, right? When fighters are talking shit to each other, you got to let them do it. Like, you can't be like, oh, we can't do that. That's not good for women's empowerment. All that dumb shit. This is boxing. This is like, you need to understand that this is boxeo. This is boxing. It's a fight. Like, you know what I mean? And nobody wants to, don't be a Debbie Downer. Like, don't be the person, oh, we don't want that. Like, now, granted, that's not for everybody. Like, Katie Taylor doesn't do all that, right? But that's her personality. I just want fighters to be organic. I don't like the fact that Clarissa Shields talks shit and people give her a hard time about it. I just don't. You know what I mean? Like I see people that give her a hard time for doing it, but they don't do it for male fighters that do it. You know what I mean? That needs to stop immediately, in my opinion. I'm just saying, okay? But most importantly, the whole like, oh, we're making history thing, it's running its course, right?
Yeah.
Now, like, you got to sell the rivalries and tell us why this fight matters, or why it's a big fight. What, like, you know what I mean? We got to start going towards that direction when it comes to that. You know what I mean? Just in my opinion, right?
The next move is get those numbers up, and those numbers will get up as far as girls in boxing gyms. As you have more girls in boxing gyms, you'll naturally get talent in the top 10, and then it's top 20, top 30, top 40 of talent.
Yep.
Right now, you don't have that.
Look, and this is happening.
Right?
Yeah, it's happening in male boxing too, unfortunately. But this whole like, we're friends and we all like each other and we're just here to break bread with one another.
It's AAU culture. It's
happening. We need rivalries. Like, you know, I want to go back to days when like Hagler said there is no fucking friends in boxing. I'm not here to make friends. Right? Kit Schofield, somebody mentioned him earlier. I interviewed him when he was a prospect. He said, I'm not here to make friends. I like a lot of these guys, you know, but I spar them. But guess what? I'm going to fight them when my time comes. And that's it.
That's that Larry Bird mentality. I don't have friends here. I don't have friends.
Like become friends with, like, later or some shit. I don't know. But it needs to kind of, it's my opinion, right? With that said, I don't know. Did I forget any words? How about this? Let's do sub and over. So, best fighter under 147 pounds in the sport of boxing this year.
So if I look at my pound for pound list, the best fighter under 147 is Inoue.
Got Inoue, okay, all right. I agree with that.
19-0 in title fights throughout 4 different weight classes. He's about to move into his 5th.
Yeah.
To me, he's the best pound for pound fighter in the sport. I got
so 147 above.
147 above, I have Usyk is my number 1.
Damn.
Now, some people would say heavyweight shouldn't be on a pound for pound, but he started off as a cruiserweight, right, and moved up. Okay. So if I get Inoue out of that, though, I would put
I'm gonna say
above 147. I would have Bivol, but at 147, I would have Bud Crawford.
Okay.
Because Bud Crawford is my number 3 right now.
Makes sense. I know you're not a big soccer fan, but I just want to give a shout out to Pele, who passed away. And something just caught my eye, and it shows you when someone's an icon. I saw a lot of people commenting that aren't not even soccer fans, but they know who Pele is. Like a lot of athletes, or they felt inclined to say something, right? But here's something, and I saw a picture with Muhammad Ali and Pele. And I don't know if Ali coined the phrase, but I know he made it popular, and that's the sweet science. Okay.
Mhm.
And Pele called soccer the beautiful game. Until this day, guess what people still call those sports? The sweet science and a beautiful game. Like, you're an icon and you're important to a sport, right? When you could call your sport a nickname and people start referring to the sport to that. You know what I mean?
And also, when you have people like me who don't watch soccer, guess who the only soccer player I knew growing up was?
Pele.
Pele. And he didn't even play
Was
in
it the
my era.
movie?
He was already retired. I didn't even know who he was. But when people would talk about soccer, it's like, oh, Pele. I didn't know any current soccer players.
Yeah. Yeah, but I guess the sweet science term goes all the way back to like the 1800s, by the way. But I just remember reading an article a couple years ago about Ali calling it that, right? And it kind of just it spread. You know what I mean? Ali got it from somebody, obviously. But what I'm saying is, like, I don't even know if Pele came up with the beautiful name term either. Like, you know what I mean? People were probably just calling it a beautiful game, and he just kind of said it. I don't know where, in a press conference or something. It just kind of boom. You know what I mean? So that's that. So, but hey, and one more thing. Speaking of soccer and boxing, and I'll kind of stick to heavyweight boxing. There's like this obsession, and I guess this is every sport, right? I see it with basketball. I see it with football. Like this obsession with like who's the greatest of all time. Like a guy will be actively playing, and they're already calling him. Oh, is he the best ever? If he wins on Sunday, does that make him the best of all time? Like people were doing that with Messi. If he wins a World Cup, does it like, dude? Like, you have to like wait. You gotta let shit marinate a little bit. Like let time pass. That's how you're more clear headed that way. The honeymoon stage and all that, right? I don't know. Like I see it with basketball too. By the way, is LeBron the best? Oh, if he wins one more NBA championship, does that make him the best? Or how many more does he need? Or he can't do it anymore because he didn't win as many as Jordan. Like what? Like I just feel like what's with that? You know what I mean? Like what is it about sports fans and us boxing fans do it too? Oh, is Fury the greatest of all time? No. Not him. It's Ali. No, it's Joe Louis. No, it's like we stick to heavyweight boxing. No, it's Marciano. Like, before you go, I just want to say this. I view things this way. All right. I see kings of their eras, like the best of their eras, as kings. Like they had to reign, right? King Edward II, whatever. I'm just making a name up, and they have their reign, right? And they rule for a certain period of time. Their time comes to an end and somebody else becomes a king. And I just see them as kings of their eras. And that's it. And I don't compare them because, to quote Michael Jordan, they never played against each other or fought against each other. So
it's one, we like to debate. That's one thing. It's fun. It's fun having a pound for pound list. It's deeply flawed. And as you go further out, it's even more flawed. Like, Hale told me that one time because I came up with a list of the best basketball players ever. He's like, dude, you haven't seen half of these guys play. And if you didn't live through the era, even if you go back and watch every single game that Larry Bird played on video, you still can't properly put it into perspective because you didn't follow the whole sport throughout the 80s. So you can't put his career into perspective. And it's the issue now that I've gotten older. And I talk to high school basketball players, middle school basketball players, and they're trying to tell me this guy's great, this guy's great. Like recently, the point guard from the Trailblazers, I forget his name off the top of my head, he becomes the leading scorer for the Trailblazers. But it's almost like you're following two different games, because if Clyde Drexler played in today's era, he'd be averaging 25 to 30 a game in today's era, 30 plus a game. So I don't know, man. It's almost like you're following different sports on top of what you said as far as a king of each era. It's almost like boxing is a different sport than it was.
Yeah, like here's the thing:
70s, 50s. It's definitely a different sport than it was a century ago. It's definitely a different sport than it was in the early 1900s.
Different sport altogether. It's just like I go by the king analogy. Every king's army had different weapons. So war strategy was different. The way they ruled, the economy was different. So the sports are different. The rules are different. So we just got to take that into account. Like I just think people just like Ali was boxing 15 rounds. So the way like when you watch Ali and you study film and you're watching the way he's fighting in the first round, and then you watch Jack Johnson in the first round, it's not the same thing because Ali had 15 rounds to worry about. Jack Johnson had like 20 some rounds or more to worry about.
And so, of course, the resources were different. Dude, if you go back and watch basketball in the 50s and 60s, dudes are playing in Chuck Taylors. Do you know what would happen if I played a game in Chuck Taylors? I would break both of my legs. I'd go out and break my. Of course, they look slower. They're playing in Chuck Taylors. Do you know? Like, have you ever worn a pair of Chuck Taylors?
Jesus Christ.
Zero ankle support. You're basically wearing socks.
So was it more like a passing game, I guess?
Yeah.
Back then?
Yes, but of course they're moving slower. They're playing in Chuck Taylors. They're not playing.
That's funny.
They're not playing in Air Maxes. Like,
yes, there's something to be said, right? There's something to be said about that aside. There's trial and error in these sports, and they start noticing what works, what doesn't work, and you start kind of like picking stuff apart, right? That's just the reality, right? So it's like, and people take that by like default, and they say, "Oh well, I mean, obviously that's proof that today's are better." Well, yes and no, because I think old arts become lost because they weren't the winning art at the moment. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. Like since Floyd Mayweather was the man of his era, right? Pretty much. You see a lot of fighters trying to implement what he did, and it doesn't work, right? Yes. Like it doesn't work at the same level. Like
remember when Andre Berto tried to show
he totally failed and flopped at it. But even you get the ones that are good at it, like a Broner, he wasn't quite as good. And one must wonder maybe Broner was better off with a high guard. You know what I mean? Like the high guard obviously works because it's been around. It's amazing to me when people like bash the high guard and say, yo, you do know that high guard has always been around. Like, you know what I mean? Like other styles came and went, this shit it's still around, right? The fundamentals are still there. Like they're still a thing. The way you throw a hook is still a thing. There's slight differences, right? With every trainer, et cetera, right? Different philosophies and all that, right? But there's certain things that still work. Like the fundamentals are still there. And I think the truth is with other sports at the end of the day. Right. But sometimes, they do fall off with the fundamentals because you have guys that want to fight with their hands down because they saw Roy Jones doing it. You know what I mean? And then that wasn't working. And what happened? Guys start going back to the high guard. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. So I'm just saying.
In the GOAT Mario piece saying this is basically a stagnation period in boxing. Some would even argue that it's going downhill a little bit due to the business side of boxing. Right. Like, how great can guys really get if they're fighting once per year? And on top of that, if you're fighting once per year, like if you're looking at this as somebody who's followed boxing for a while, if a guy fights once per year, every single fight's got to be a top fight, every single one. But you got dudes now fighting once per year, and the competition is not that great. So once again, using a warrior term, how do you get better if you're not sharpening your sword? How do you get better? And then how, once again, do you compare a guy fighting once per year and maybe every other fight is a top fight with guys who fought once per month?
Exactly.
And a guy who fought Jake LaMotta 6 times. Like, how do you compare anybody to that? How do you how do you compare anybody to a guy who fought George Foreman in his prime? When you were past your prime, it knocked him out. Joe Frazier 3 times, Ken Norton 3 times, Spinks twice, and then on top of all the other guys he fought, Larry Holmes when he was well past.
I would say this, and Hapo kind of said in the chat now, but I think boxing has regressed. There's no rule that says your sport gets better. Like that's not, in order for the sport to get better, right? Obviously, like trends need to continue, and I just don't see the level of fighter that there was like in the 80s, for example. I just don't see it. I'm sorry. There is no like when Duran moved up to 147, there was Benitez and fucking Sugar Ray Leonard, brother. Like those were the dudes you had to go through, right? Not Cambozas, right? Like there was some monsters. You want to go to head? You want to go to middleweight? This Hagler. What's up? You know what I mean? So like I'm just saying, like it's just, oh, you want to go down to 140? Oh, Aaron Pryor's right there.
Yeah.
What's up? You got Arguello waiting for you. You want to fight him instead? Like there was like I'm just saying, man. Like I'm just saying, and you know what happens? A lot of these guys, man, they watch these old films, okay, and they're watching the style that these guys fight, okay. They watch it like, and here's what I say: like sometimes old school tricks still work. You see Inoue, and there's a great video here that kind of shows he's a student of the game. He's doing tricks and techniques that Joe Louis was doing, right? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of these new fighters don't know what the fuck he's doing in there, and that's why he's fucking them up, right? Like there's old school tricks that will work if these fighters implement them. Like if there's a such thing as a lost art in sports.
Yeah, two points. First of all, because you just something I wanted to rant on Twitter earlier, but didn't have the characters. I see videos going around about guys in sparring getting the better of another guy in sparring. You realize I want to hit the Allen Iverson. This is practice. I remember watching a video of Bivol talk about this, and somebody's asking him about sparring. He's like, it's practice. Like, if I have when I go into sparring, I work on my jab one day. One day I might work on my hook. One day I might work on my defense and not throw too many punches. They're working on things. And I think it's this culture of boxing. I think we have more boxing fans today who have never, I think we have the highest percentage of boxing fans who have never been in a boxing gym. I think that's what the issue is. And they don't realize, like I see it circulating today, Devin Haney beating Hector Luis Garcia in 2 minutes of sparring, and everybody's like, oh, see, he's not that good. See, Haney was it's like, dude, we don't know the context of this video. It's like when Spadafora beat Mayweather in 5-6 rounds of sparring circulating YouTube. And even Spadafora said, like, dude, I'm shocked. He went on the Boxing Voice, said, I'm shocked that this is a deal because fighters know, like, Mayweather might have been working on something that day, or he might have overslept and had cramps.
Fighters,
you don't know the
fighters know, brother. Yeah,
you
fighters
don't know
this. But here's the other thing.
Was Hector Luis Garcia working on his jab that day?
But here's the thing, Alex. Like here's the thing. Let's say you're the best. Let's say hypothetically you're the best boxer on the planet, right? Mm-hmm. You still have to sharpen your tools. If you're an asshole and you start posting you beating up these sparring partners, right? First of all, beating them up is you're not going to improve, right? So what do you have to do? Even if you're the best, right? If you're not good on the inside, then you work on the inside. You get someone who's good on the inside, and then you work on that. You stay away from fighting on the outside and mid-range, and you work on the inside so you improve in that department. Now, that video might circulate. Oh, my God, he's getting the best of them. Look. Okay, but you don't know he was working specifically on fighting on the inside, right? Now, if you're an asshole, right, and you never do that, all you do is embarrass fighters, guess what? No one's going to work with you. If you're an up-and-coming prospect and your coach is putting out film, right, and showing them off to like YouTube channels, oh, look, he got the best and so, no one's going to work with you. Like, that's unprofessional. That's an asshole move. And guess what? You're going to have a hard time getting sparring, which is what you need to improve as a fighter.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
And on my second point was, I always check myself because I always said growing up, I don't want to be the fuddy-duddy. Like, I don't want to be the old guy on the porch yelling at the youngsters, keep it down. Like, even intentionally, even though I hate it, I listen to the modern rap music just to see what the kids are doing. You know, I hate it, and I don't criticize it, but I think it's like becoming an objective fact that sports right now in general, it's not just boxing, regressing or on a regression period a little bit. And I don't quite understand it because the training and the resources are better than ever. And I've talked to basketball trainers about this in the area because I work with some of them, and they don't quite get it either. They're micro dosing these kids to death with cones and dribbling drills, and they're producing better ball handlers. They're producing
That's
better athletes, but they're not producing better basketball players. And
here's
on
what
top
it
of
is,
that,
Alex.
but look at this, D-Style. In the
Yeah,
NFL today, quarterback play is worse than ever, and it's a passing league. The rules are set up for the offense to have
exactly.
put up points, for quarterbacks to put up passing yards. It's set up for
I'm
fantasy
telling you,
football.
I have
And
the
we're
answer.
producing worse quarterbacks.
Alex, look, I'm a chess player. When I want to improve, I don't play on easy mode. I don't play against people I could easily beat. I don't even play against people that are on my level that I have a shot to beat. I play really good chess players that I know. I'm going to try my best, but I know they're going to beat me, right? Because they're just better at it than me. That's the only way I could improve. So my point is, all the rules that I see in most sports are made to make scoring easier, to make running the ball easier, to make passing the ball easier, to put the ball in the basket easier, to make it quote unquote safer, right? To make it less engaging. That's what it is. And this is in every sport. Right? Because I keep hearing people, oh, look at Messi, look at everything he's doing. He had more longevity than Maradona. Yeah, Maradona's playing in an era where they could like grab you and throw you in the ground, brother. It's not the same thing. Right? Like they used to literally it's not like NFL, like the tackle in soccer. They wouldn't like throw yellow flags for that, and like it was just different.
They used to grab Reggie Miller off the ball. You can hand check Michael Jordan on the ball.
Yes. So who's going to become better? The who's going to be a better basketball player? The guy that needs to deal with all those obstacles, or the guy that's is on easy mode? I mean, I just think that's what it is. To be quite honest with you. And I keep hearing about how big LeBron, he's so dominant. He will dominate in every era, but they make the rules easy for him.
Yeah.
We don't know if he'll dominate in every era. How do we know that? Like, I'm just saying, I'm not saying he wouldn't, right? He looks the part. He looks like the greatest athlete I've seen in probably any sport, but like especially in basketball. But it doesn't mean he's a better basketball player than guys of the past. That's not to quite mean that. Now in boxing, though, not like the other sports, I can't quite say that the athletes are better than the athletes of the past in boxing. I can't quite say that. I'm sorry, right? I don't know if these guys are better athletes than Roy Jones Jr. I don't know about that one. I don't know they're better than Floyd Mayweather, to be quite honest with you. I don't know they're better athletes than, look.
Ray Leonard.
Ali. Pryor, Ali, like, you know what I mean? Like these were great athletes. They were the best athletes were taking up boxing. That just isn't the case anymore. And it's frustrating when people are like, oh, what do you mean? Now, granted, that's specific to America. So I get that there's nuance to everything, right? Like just like in basketball, the world has gotten better at the sport. You know what I mean? But, I guess that's why we have what we have, but it is what it is, Doesn't mean we don't have great talents out there. We have a lot of great fighters out there, but I'm talking as a whole. You know what I mean? The talent pool as a whole isn't quite there, and I think it's the same in other sports, man. Like I can't. It's just me. I try to get into the NBA lately. I'm tired of all the three-point shots.
Yeah,
and I'm researching it. Oh, it's because they did some analytics, and they saw that. Oh, so many 3-point shots a game means you have this percentage shot to win. I'm just thinking to myself, oh, have we gotten there where the nerds are telling the jocks how to play?
Yes.
We reached that point?
We have.
now, let me ask you this, because I'm ignorant. Does it really work? Like, is it like a legit, in your opinion?
It seems to work. Everybody's following the Golden State model. So it's heavy three-pointer, heavy three-pointer, heavy three-pointer, as many possessions as possible. I don't have an issue with that, but the issue is no play, no mid-range game. All that stuff is extinct in basketball. And when everybody is chasing the goal, they forget everything else, and we're not producing guys who can play in the post, mid-range game. And I think if you go back to that and mix them up, I think you can beat this stuff. I think you can beat it. You can't go heavy analytics. Like, you have to have some common sense in these spots. And I think baseball managers do it the most. Like, they'll pull a guy after one hitter, lefty versus righty, et cetera, et cetera. But I think a lot of times that burns. You got to know your team. So,
Wow. Well, I don't know, man. I just think like I get it. You look at the analytics, yada yada yada, but like I think the statistics become skewed once you start using the statistics as some form of like game plan. So, for example, could you just imagine like if a boxing trainer did this? Oh, look, analytics show that like from results, if you jab a certain amount of time, no matter what, every round you win. So every round, I want you to throw 25 jabs exactly. Well, what if throwing a jab isn't working and it's actually like it makes it more predictable? And then, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like certain things that you can't manipulate that way. Like, it's because then you start creating another set of statistics. You know, I don't know. It's whatever to me, but
yeah, and every fighter is not going to be strong with the jab, just like every shooter isn't going to be Steph Curry and Klay Thompson.
yeah, I don't want to see 6'7" dudes shoot 3-pointers.
Where are the other Steph Currys and Klay Thompsons? Where are they?
I don't know. Like, I mean, look. There's a bunch of fathers right now in the driveway having their kids throw 3-pointers till they become. We're gonna have 3-point. Like I'm telling you right now, there's gonna be dudes that can't miss a 3-pointer. You know what I mean? So if that's all they're doing from when they're little, now there's something that I believe. I don't know a lot about the sport, but if players were allowed to be as defensive as they were before,
yes,
it wouldn't be that easy to just be throwing a 3-pointer. You're going to have to be open. There's going to have to be some strategy to get them open, pass it, and then have to shoot it right away. Dude, like I'm seeing, this is when I turn off the TV. Somebody passed, I don't even know the name of the dudes. They pass it to the dude. He's wide open. He just takes his time and gets a free throw, and he just shoots a 3. And they're just waiting, like they're kind of battling for the rebound. Like, you know what I mean? But why isn't nobody like rushing him to throw it? You would think the faster he needs to throw it, the less likely he is to hit it.
You know where this fits in with boxing too is, and we've talked about this in the past. We did videos about this a decade ago, is the overwhelming amount of tactical clinching is what I would like to see in the future in boxing is really a stress to try to limit the amount of clinching in boxing in order to favor fighters who are actually trying to fight, and to where we can get results that fit to where the better fighter is winning a higher percentage of the time. Like the real fighter is winning a higher percentage of the time. All right. So I don't want to see 15, 20 clinches per round from a fighter. And the referee is just standing there and break, go.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, are you gonna do something about it? Like, it's frustrating, bro. Like because that's not the essence of the sport. Like, it just isn't, you know. And I don't blame the fighters. The fighters are gonna do whatever they can get away with, right? But I blame those in charge of these rules in the sport. Like, it's time to start enforcing this, and I don't see why any promoter, why the sanctioning bodies would be against this. Like, start getting strict with the holding. Just give an FYI, send the memos out, and be like, look, we're gonna start being very strict with this holding stuff. All right, like, why not? And then no one could give me a good explanation why it should be allowed. Nobody. No. Outside of maybe their favorite fighter does it a lot, so by default they're going to say, "Oh no, let it happen," right? But I just don't like it.
It's actually against the Marcus of Queensberry rules. So what I don't like is it's passed off as good defensive fighting, and it's not. And the reason I really hate it is it's taken away one of the greatest aspects of our sport tactically is inside fighting. And if you go in gyms, inside fighting isn't being taught anymore. It's not.
Yeah, because you just hold.
And it goes back to what we were talking about in basketball. And you're teaching this type of basketball, fine, to try to win. Post game's disappearing. Mid-range game is disappearing. So you take away aspects of the game that people who watch the game for a long time really enjoyed, and it's going away. And more people are saying, I don't really want to watch this anymore. I don't want to watch dudes jack up threes all the time. I want to see them try to, because what happened was when they took away hand checking, when they took away holding off the ball, what did guys do? They said, okay, we're just going to jack up threes because we can get open easily. It's harder for the defense to guard us. So we're going to get as many shots and possessions as possible to take advantage of that. So what I would like to see is NBA to adapt to that and say, hey, let's implement hand checking again. Hey, we were wrong about this. Let's do a little holding up the ball. But what happened was they wanted a more finesse game to attract globally. And on top of that, they didn't like all the fights that were happening. But to me, it's dumbed down the game a bit. But the same thing with boxing is if we implement,
especially now,
like if we step in more when guys are holding and take points away, we'll see more inside fighting. And for boxing fans like us who want to see action, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Look, it's like this. There's two things that I feel should just be universal, right? One, they didn't do something about the holding. I'm sorry. And if people get too righteous and holding's part of boxing, they're like, no, it's not, right? And especially today when there's an alternative combat sport called MMA where they do a lot of clinching, right? Well, what separates boxing from MMA? The fact that it's limited by design and it's a fist fight. That's what separates it. If you're allowing holding and this and that and and then McGregor gets in the ring with Mayweather and then the ref starts breaking it up right away. Well, it makes you wonder, well, I thought you allow holding. Like, well, what's going on? You know what I mean? Yeah. So like if Floyd was turning his back and waiting for the ref to break it up. I remember that fight, right? So if you're going to be allowing holding, to me, it's like, okay, well, what's the point of the holding? Like, for example, Muay Thai, there's a point to it. Like you could like grab a guy and throw him to the ground. It's a point or whatever. In boxing, there's no other than stifling the offense of your opponent and making the fight more boring, there really isn't anything that benefits the sport of boxing and us fans for you to hold. Like other than the two things I mentioned. Like you don't get anything out of it. There's no real like if you do this while you're holding, you get points, or it's not to me, it's like, okay, well, if they're not gonna throw each other, if they're not allowed to just keep doing it, you do break it up, then what's the point of doing it?
Yeah, there is none other than they want to break up the action, slow down a fighter. That's their tactical. It's tactical, and that's their advantage. But it shouldn't be an advantage. Is the point?
I just don't think fighters should be able to do it.
We're not saying you have to be completely rigid with it. We're not saying every single time point or every 5 times take a point. It's like when they get to 30, 40,
brother. I did a clinch count. You know what I like? ESPN started doing an initiated clinch count, and a bunch of dudes started getting triggered and angry, right? Oh, they never did this for Klitschko. Well, they're implementing it now. You know what I mean? But it reminded me of something because they were doing it for the Haney fight. A lot of Haney fans were getting mad, right? And they were calling Bradley all types of names because he was pointing out the fact that Haney was initiating most of those clinches, right? Now, here's the reality. I did one for Klitschko Povetkin, brother. So I have the video up. There was a round where he did 30 times he held Povetkin. That was ridiculous, right? Not to mention laying on his back and all this other stuff. That's why the fight sucked, okay? Most fights that suck, you could go and you'll notice there's a common denominator in most of them. The holding, right? Yeah. And it's frustrating to watch, brother. It's like nobody wants to see it. It's not. Only if you like that fighter and the holding's helping him win. Only in that case do people like it. If I'm honest.
We want to see who the true great inside fighters are, and we want to see who the true great defensive fighters are.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're clinching, of course you're going to look great defensively if you're constantly clinching. Exactly. But I want to see, more than anything, I want to see the comeback of defensive fighting. I mean, inside fighting. I want to see the comeback of inside fighting.
Yeah. Well, look, great discussion. I just want to do an announcement. So January 9th, we'll be having the return of Hispanics causing panic. All right, it'll be hosted by myself at DStyleBoxing. Okay, it's going to be a great year, 2023. The show's been on the shelf for 8 months, going to 9 by the time we go live. That's a little too long. We're going to bring the show back. I think it's going to be a great show. We'll be doing a show on Monday nights, which means I will be retiring Aftermath. Aftermath will go on the archive. Great show, great times. Just want to go ahead and move forward with the HCP here. Calix and I will have kind of like a third host here and there, just in just like we always did with HCP. We're going to bring on some guests, some live interviews and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be every Monday. I don't know about the time yet. We might have to be flexible with the time, but nonetheless, it'll be on Monday. And we'll always let you know at least 24 hours before when we'll be going live that afternoon. For sure, or evening. I think that's it. Oh, really quick, the roundtable. One goal I have for the roundtable is the following, and I want to let everybody know. It's a great show. Love the show, obviously, right? Been doing it for over 2 years now. And we're going to continue to do it. We're at 111 episodes, 112th episode next Thursday. So you guys tune in for that here on the channel. But I have a goal next year, and maybe it's not possible. I don't know because of the way things are right now. Okay, It's polarizing. People are in their bubble and this and that. On Twitter, I invited Fanon Boxing to come on the roundtable. And there's already people like, why? Or what do you mean? Like, let me tell everybody something right now. One goal I have is, and we already tried this, and so don't get me wrong, but I want to have different viewpoints on the roundtable. I don't want everyone on the roundtable to agree with me. I don't want to hear my viewpoint. I'd rather hear a different viewpoint. I want to hear different perspectives, and I want the audience to get a different perspective from different views, just like that. So we may be inviting people that you particularly don't like, or you don't like their content, or maybe you do like their content, whatever it is. The goal is to have, we're already diverse, probably the most diverse panels, but the goal is to be even more diverse. Like we want to bring in people that you just wouldn't think would come on. Like, that is the goal next year for the roundtable. Calix, any final words?
No, I'm looking forward to it. 2023, I'm ramping up the content on my channel big time. So look out for that big time. And I definitely look forward to being on Hispanic Causing Panic as well, because I just think we can do a lot with it. Interviews. I think we bring on content that's more versatile than pretty much all the channels out there. I mean, the versatility we hit on the hot topics, but we also hit on the hardcore boxing topics. And also the toughest thing to do is to disturb your allies at the same time. I do it like when you have to talk, be critical of a certain fighter that isn't going to go over well in the chat or with your allies. That's the hardest thing to do. We've done it. I've seen you do it, and you sacrificed quite a bit of possible subscribers in doing it. But the best thing to do is be true to yourself. So we'll stay with that in 2023, and the content is going to be ramped up significantly.
Absolutely. With that said, guys, this is DStyleBoxing. We are out of here. I was on here longer than expected. So there you go. You guys got something. So peace out, guys.